Hello, dreamers and midnight wanderers. You found your way to Creepy Chills, where the dark is gentle and the nightmares are kind. Tonight, let the shadows pull you under. But first, whisper to the void below. Globe showing Europe, Africa, where in the world are you listening? Mantelpiece clock, what hour does the moon rule your sky? There's something beautiful about strangers drifting to sleep to the same haunted lullaby. If tonight's story carries you away, leave a comment or just let go. Now, close your eyes. The dark won't hurt you here. Pause, then softer. At least not tonight.
They name it Grey Ditch, or at least they used to. It used to show up on vintage maps, tucked between two ridges of mountains in a far-off corner of the state. A mining camp, once bustling with the ring of pickaxes and the rumble of trains carrying coal. Nowadays, it's a rumor, a legend whispered by truckers at midnight, cups of coffee, and old-timers who claim to have known someone who went searching for it and never returned. But it's not an urban myth, because Grey Ditch vanishes, on satellite photos, on digital maps. It's erased like a fingerprint wiped off a glass. And if you attempt to go there, truly attempt, you're never seen again. When Harper Gray first learned about it, she was up to her knees in archives for a podcast, Ghost Routes. She had done stories on vanishing hitchhikers, haunted highways, and towns engulfed by lakes. But an entire town that disappears? That was a first. She discovered it buried in a thread on a little-known internet forum. Grey Ditch. Look for maps prior to 1986. Then attempt to find it now. You won't. My cousin traveled there in 2012. Never returned. Harper arched an eyebrow and did what she excelled at. Research. Maps from the past verified the town's existence. Pop. 2,412 in 1979. Then, poof. By the late 80s, wasn't merely unoccupied. It was vanished as if it never happened. No reference in census documents. No zip codes. Satellite photography revealed forest and fog. But that didn't deter her. She hired a Jeep and drove out into the mountains with her recording equipment, a backpack of supplies, and one mission, to record Grey Ditch. Locals in the nearest town, Dry Hollow, were less than helpful. When she asked about Grey Ditch, a grizzled gas station attendant narrowed his eyes and muttered, "Ain't wise to go looking for places that don't want to be found." She chuckled nervously, thinking he was playing along. "I'm serious," he said. "Town takes people. Always has. Always will." She recorded that. It'd make a great intro. The instructions were unclear. Go along the old mining road past Eagle Spine, then find the red tree. She spotted the ridge without difficulty, and sure enough, there was a single tree, its leaves red against the gray mist. The road beyond it was filled with weeds and potholes, nearly impassable. The farther in she went, the more still it became. No birdsong, no leaf rustle. Only the quiet thrum of her Jeep engine and the whine of her headphones. Then her GPS faltered. The screen flashed, then rebooted. The blue line of direction disappeared, showing only an open field. She attempted to scan her phone, for no signal. The compass program whirled in lazy, tipsy spirals. "Okay, creepiness," she whispered into the mic. "GPS is lost. Good horror movie stuff." She chuckled to herself. It was all stage. And then, just above the horizon, she saw it. Grey Ditch. It was there. Broken down, yes. Deteriorating. The buildings were old like a Western film set, but actual. Church, diner, barbershop. A rusted play structure groaned gradually in the wind, though she couldn't feel a breath. "Holy crap," she whispered. She emerged, camera in her hand, and she pressed the record button. Her boots cracked over gravel that hadn't felt the touch of footprints in decades. It all lay under dust, but not rot, like time had stopped, like it was waiting. "Welcome to Grey Ditch," she whispered into her mic, shivering, "where the town vanishes. But today it welcomed me in." She walked past the diner. The windows were spattered with grime, but she could have sworn there was a shadow behind the counter. Her heart racing. Was there someone there? She walked in. Dust motes danced in slivers of pale light. Plates remained on tables. A cup of coffee, mid-pour, frozen, overturned behind the counter, the liquid still. She blinked. It wasn't coffee. It was Ash. Abruptly, her recorder hissed. Voices. Whispers. She raised her mic. Do you hear that? It's faint, but you shouldn't be here. She froze. The voice hadn't been from her headphones. It had been from behind her. She turned around, but the diner was deserted. Outside again, the town looked different. The fog had grown thicker. The sky, previously overcast, was now ink black. Her watch flashed midnight, though it had been only 3 p.m. She ran back to the Jeep, or where the Jeep had been. There was nothing but forest now. No car, no road, just trees and stillness. Panic flooded in. She spun around in circles, heart thudding against her ribs. The houses nearby appeared closer, distorted. The swing set creaked once more loudly this time. Then she saw the people, standing at the edge of town. Dozens of them. Men, women, children. Faces ghostly, eyes empty. Staring, waiting. Who are you? She asked, stepping back, voice trembling. One moved forward, a small boy in overalls, jaw loose. You heard it, he said. That's the rule. If you hear the town, it keeps you. She turned and ran. Harper's final recording was discovered weeks after. Jumbled, the sound distorted. Hikers found it stuck in a hollow tree, a full 50 miles off any posted trail. The video was worse. Static. A few fuzzy frames of town nobody knew. And then just her voice. Breathing, running, crying. Then nothing. Nobody's seen Graditch since. Maps still don't mark it. GPS still freezes in that section of mountain. But truckers still whisper. Old men still talk. And sometimes, just sometimes, people hear the town. A bell ringing where no town exists. A diner light flashing in the fog. A swing groaning in still air. If you hear it, turn back. Because if you hear Graditch, it already knows you're coming. Not in the manner of art critics, but literally, nauseatingly ugly. A twisted landscape with claw-tipped trees pointing toward a scarlet sky. In the background, a bony figure stood, faceless, arms outstretched, as if presenting something intangible. No signature, no border, only canvas and horror. It was discovered in the attic of the former Whitmore estate after the owner, a recluse art dealer by the name of Cyrus Whitmore, was discovered dead in the study, his eyes wide open, mouth hanging agape, fingers curled as if he'd attempted to claw his own face off. They declared it a heart attack, but nobody could account for the scratches on the back of his eyelids. When the painting arrived at the Edgell Gallery, it was stored in the back room, hidden behind a velvet drape. No title, no label. Curator Mara Lennox argued over whether to hang it at all. But curiosity is a strong drug, especially when the piece has a peculiar vibe. It felt like it was alive, like it was watching. One night, Mara lingered late, drinking cold coffee and listing new editions. The painting stood propped against a crate in the corner, draped in a thin sheet. She stared at it once and again. It pulled at her, as if it wanted her to glance. She drew back the sheet, and the world changed. It began slowly. The room leaned, ever so slightly. Her head throbbed. Shadows on the walls grew deeper. And that faceless person in the painting, it shifted. Not obviously, just a tilt of the head, a flinch in the stance, a swirl in the background sky, now filled with clouds like smoke. She blinked, massaged her eyes, looked once more, back to normal. Kind of. She laughed nervously. Long day, she grumbled, recovering the painting. But the chill she felt in her bones lingered. And when she passed by the gallery windows on her way out, she could have sworn she saw someone standing inside, looking at the painting. Someone with no face. By morning, Mara had talked herself into thinking it was just stress. Nothing more. She was a rational person. But still, she steered clear of the back room, until the intern stumbled upon it. Jamie was 19, wide-eyed and curious, and certainly not in the know about the painting's unsettling past. He ripped the sheet away with the excitement of finding treasure. Whoa! Mara entered just in time to catch him standing still, staring at the canvas with his eyes glued to it. Jamie, she asked. No answer. She reached out and put a hand on his shoulder. He jumped as if he'd been shocked and fell, gasping. There was something in the sky, he stuttered. It was screaming. That should have been sufficient. should have incinerated the painting, sealed it away, anything. But Mara asked questions. She began to dig. Whitmore's will had over a dozen journals, all scribbled in unstable handwriting over his last few years. Most of them were unintelligible, devolving into madness. But one entry stood out. The man in the painting looks. The sky bleeds at night when I sleep. I wake with ash on my tongue. It's not a painting. It's a door. A door. To what? Mara didn't sleep the night of the dream. She left the painting in the corner of her apartment, wrapped, but it was calling to her. Not with sound, but with presence. She dreamed that night of the faceless man. He stood in her hallway, arms raised. She decided to face it. A recorder rolling, Mara placed the painting on an easel, drew a chair in front of it, and gazed. The hallucinations were immediate. The walls oozed blood. The ceiling fractured. Her skin crawled like ants marched beneath her skin. But worse than that, the figure emerged from the painting. It didn't ascend, didn't jerk its way across the canvas. It was simply there, tall, gaunt, faceless. It spread its arms. Mara screamed. She backed up, knocking into the recorder. It continued to roll, recording her sobs, the crash of things breaking, and a low, whispering incantation. What you see belongs to me. She fell unconscious. When she awoke, the painting was restored to the canvas. The room remained unchanged, but her eyes were sore as though they'd been pried open for hours. That recording made the rounds. The Painting That Sees You, Blair the title. Some called it a hoax. Others thought it was performance art. But Mara knew better. She attempted to destroy it, burned it. The canvas ignited, but the image remained. She ripped it, drowned it, even buried it. And yet it returned. On her wall, in her dreams, in reflective surfaces. Others tried to resist its pull one by one. Tourists snuck into the gallery at night, willing to risk it for a glimpse. Daring adventurers, YouTubers, cynics. The majority emerged shrieking. A few didn't emerge at all. They discovered one man huddled into a ball in the supply room, repeating, "It's a window. It's a window," into a gagging, when his voice gave out whisper. Mara vanished the following week. Her apartment was vacant. The only thing remaining was the painting, leaning against her living room couch, in pristine condition. In the corner, in black marker. It doesn't want to be seen. It wants to see. They relocated the painting to a vault, under lock and key. But that hasn't stopped it. It happens sometimes, behind live streams, on murals no one painted, even in people's dreams, of individuals who have never crossed paths. A man without a face, a sky that howls, a piece of art that isn't really a piece of art at all, but a door. So, if you ever witness a distorted red sky and a faceless individual giving something you can't see quite, don't look, because once you do, it never stops staring back. The Silent Child. The girl was brought in at 3:17 a.m. No one witnessed who dropped her on the steps of Fairhaven Orphanage. No headlights, no footprints in the snow, just a child standing barefoot in her nightgown, as white as the frost that stuck to her hair. She didn't cry, didn't talk, didn't blink, just stared. Miss Cartwright, the headmistress, took her in with shaking hands. "What's your name, sweetheart?" she asked softly, covering the girl in a blanket. Nothing. No response. No looking up. She was examined by a doctor. No physical harm. Healthy. But she never uttered a word. Ever. They named her Alara. Alara was silent. Too silent. The other kids shunned her, not out of malice, but habit. She never played, never laughed. She would sit for hours, staring at the walls with unblinking eyes, as if she were hearing something no one else could hear. One morning, Miss Cartwright discovered the word "listen" written on the dining hall wall. In blood, tiny fingerprints smudged the edges. The kids were appalled, but no one owned up. One evening, a boy named Thomas shrieked during his sleep. He said that he had seen Alara above his bed with something red and wet in her hand. They discovered a dead bird wrapped beneath his blanket. Its throat slit open. At the end of the week, 3 additional blood-written messages emerged. Underneath, not alone, they're hungry. Miss Cartwright attempted to write it off. Prank, she demanded. Some disturbed child rebelling. But in her heart, she knew. No one ever witnessed Alara writing anything, but she was always present when the messages were found. Silent, still, eyes wide and dark, and the blood not from animals anymore. One evening, Miss Cartwright worked late, determined to catch the culprit. She sat in her office, feigning work, when the atmosphere changed. Cold filled the room. The lights flickered. Then a whisper, so quiet she thought she was dreaming. "Help me." She stood, heart racing. The corridor outside her door seemed impossibly long, twisted like a dream. Shadows crept without light, and at the far end of the hall stood Alara. Head cocked, hands crimson. Miss Cartwright couldn't catch her breath. "Alara," she gasped. The child didn't answer, just turned and disappeared into the shadows. Pulled like a puppet, Miss Cartwright trailed behind. She discovered the note in her own office when she came back 20 minutes later, though she had no memory of leaving. Below the floor, and a sign, sketched in blood. A circle pierced 3 times with crude slashes. Miss Cartwright then contacted the police at last. They questioned it, ignored it. Old wood, damp pipes, some clown's prank. But one of the officers, the Officer Dunn, shot himself during that night while on duty. Written on blood on the windshield. IT whispers through her. The orphanage began to decline. Children wet the bed, refused to sleep, screamed when Alara was near. One boy gouged his own ears with a pencil, mumbling, "Make the voices stop." And still, Alara said nothing. Until one morning, she was gone. Her bed untouched. Her shoes still neatly placed. But her room was freezing, and her walls covered in more messages. Layered and overlapping, written in something dark and thick. They could read only a few words through the smear. "Door, don't open. Not her fault." Miss Cartwright cried. "Quit the orphanage. Move far away." Years went by. The building was condemned, left to rot. But the legend of the silent child only grew. 10 years later, a team of paranormal investigators broke into the ruins of Fairhaven. Their YouTube channel was notorious for over-the-top stunts, but this time, they were hunting something real. They located Alara's room with no problem. Her name was still etched into the wall above the bed frame. They flipped on the cameras, installed infrared. The room chilled instantly. Classic haunted atmosphere. One of them quipped, attempting to cover up his anxiety. Then the lights flickered off. The darkness engulfed them. Then the writing started. On the walls, on their arms, on the inside of their camera lenses. "You shouldn't be here. She's still listening." She didn't open the door. The broadcast was interrupted for 73 seconds. When it resumed, 2 of the men were missing. The other, one with wide eyes, blood pouring from his ears, shouted only one thing before the camera hit the floor. "Alara." The video was yanked from the internet within a few hours. No one has any idea who did it, but rumors continue to spread. Alara's spirit isn't vengeful, people claim. She's trapped. She's a vessel. Something else is using her to speak, to warn. Some say she was never a child at all, just a shell something crawled into. Others claim the real Alara is still beneath the orphanage floor, cold and silent, while something else walks in her skin. And sometimes, in abandoned places, people find blood on the walls. Not splattered, written. She never wanted to speak, but it needed a voice. Now it wants you. So, if you ever come across a child standing by himself in the cold, barefoot, glaring without blinking, don't speak, don't listen, and most importantly, don't follow. The steps always started at 2:13 a.m., not 2:12, not 2:14. Always every time at 2:13. Hollow and slow, like someone walked barefoot across the cold concrete floor under Simon's bedroom. The basement, the one place in the house he never went near. He hadn't been there in nearly 2 years. Not since the day he'd moved in. It was an old house, constructed in 1893, with all the rambling hallways and creaking wood. The real estate agent described it as historic. Simon described it as a fixer-upper with possibilities. But it was affordable, and he had to have a place to begin anew. He opened the door to the basement only once. Dust clogged the stairs. One bulb hung from a cord, dimly lighting the bottom. The scent of mildew and something else, metallic, wafted through the air. He got 2 steps down before a cold blast of dread hit him. Not nervousness, not fear, dread. It was off down there, heavy like the air weighed something. He shut the door, nailed it shut, and never spoke of it again. But then the footsteps came, soft at first, just a shuffle. He thought it was the old house settling, until it kept happening. Every night, 2:13 a.m., Simon attempted everything, earplugs, music, whiskey. But no matter what, the sound caught up with him. 1 step, 2, 3, pause, like someone pacing, waiting. And then there was the whisper, only once. One night last week, a dry, raspy voice wafted up through the vent. "You left me down here." He convinced himself that he was dreaming. He had to be, until he began to discover things outside the basement door. The first was a kid's marble, red and broken. Then a lone, rotten shoe, too small for any grown-up. Then 3 long scratches across the door, deep into the wood, as if cut with claws. Simon stood paralyzed, looking at the marks, his breath misting in the sudden cold. And he knew, down in the bottom of his stomach, something was in the basement. He attempted to seek assistance. A priest, a psychic, even a plumber. The priest declined to come inside. The psychic walked up onto the porch and suddenly broke down weeping. "It's not human," she murmured before fleeing for a car. And the plumber? He opened the door to the basement, hesitated, and said, "No." Simon observed from the window as he climbed into his truck and departed without speaking a word. That evening, the footfalls altered. They went up the stairs. 1 step, then another one, and another, until they came to a halt just behind the door. Simon was in bed, clutching a bat, his shirt drenched in sweat. The handle wobbled, not aggressively, not panic-stricken, only a slow, methodical turn. But the door was nailed shut, for the time being. He boarded it up the following day, piled furniture in front of it, installed cameras. But the feed always dropped at 2:13, just static and a high-pitched whine. Then the knocking started. 3 soft knocks, every single night. Simon stopped sleeping. His eyes became bloodshot, his mind unraveling at the edges. He talked out loud now, pleading, screaming, threatening the darkness beyond the door. But the thing never answered. Not until the scratching started. At first, it sounded like a mouse. Then louder, more hysterical, like someone scratching at the door from the other side. He awoke one evening to see his name etched into the wood. Simon. The following evening, let me out. And then there was the dream. He was a boy again, standing at the top of a dark staircase. The basement, but altered. Smooth walls, pulsing shadows. At the bottom stood a figure, small, weak. "Little boy, don't you remember?" the boy asked, voice full of sorrow. "You locked me in." Simon awoke screaming. He didn't have a brother. He didn't think he did. Right? The second night, the house fell still. No steps, no knocking on wood. Only silence so profound it echoed in his ears. At 2:13, his bedroom door creaked. The bat in his hand shook. No wind, no windows ajar. Only the basement calling. He got up as if in a daze, walked down the hall, beyond the pictures of a family he didn't recall taking with them, to the boarded door. The air chilled with every step. The walls throbbed. The boards were gone. So were the nails. Just the door now, the slightest bit open. A whisper crept through. It's time to remember. He didn't want to. He did not want to recall the games they played when they were children. The dares. The accident. He did not want to recall his little brother sobbing in the dark. He did not want to recall locking the door and walking away. He did not want to recall the silence that followed. The kind that lasts years. Decades. But the door creaked open by itself. Stairs descended into darkness. No bulb. No railing. Only shadow. And at the bottom stood the boy once more. No longer weak. No longer sorrowful. Twisted. Eyes empty. Skin pale and stretched like wax. Nails long and black. A smile too wide. "You abandoned me," the thing croaked. So I remained. Simon attempted to move. Attempted to scream. But his feet moved of their own accord. Down. Down. Step by step. The door closed behind him. That was 3 weeks ago. The house is quiet now. Tranquil. No footsteps. No whispers. Just silence. Until 2:13 a.m., when a new footsteps start from beyond the basement door. They arrived on a Tuesday. A gray van. No moving truck. No furniture. Cardboard boxes and an old armoire tied to the roof. The house had stood vacant for almost 5 years, ivy covered and shadowed. People said it was cursed, but no one ever said why. That morning, Sarah stood at her kitchen window, coffee cup in hand, as the family marched into the house across the street. The father, tall, too tall, moved stiffly, as if his joints were learning how to work. The mother, expressionless, with a casserole dish she never once appeared to set down. And the daughter, small, pale, with jet black hair and a white dress too clean for someone who was moving home. None of them smiled. None of them talked. They just stared. Sarah waved. The little girl cocked her head, and then they all went in. The front door didn't creak. It clicked. Something was already weird by Friday. The neighbors still hadn't met, never left the property. No nighttime lights, no trash cans out, no noise, except the humming, low and beat-like like a chant but not. It began at midnight and ended at exactly 3 a.m. Sarah inquired. The other neighbors dismissed her, happy somebody finally purchased that dump. Old Mr. Talbot grumbled. But aren't they a little odd? She persisted. He hesitated. All neighbors are odd if you observe them too closely. Then the dinner invitation. A piece of paper slipped under her door. Thick paper, black letters. Join us for supper. Saturday, 7 p.m. We look forward to seeing you. No names, just a wax seal, a round circle with 3 eyes in it. Sarah almost dismissed it, but curiosity prevailed. Their house was spotless. No cobwebs, no dust. Walls too white, too clean. A sterile scent filled the air, like bleach and copper. Welcome, the mother said, opening the door without blinking. She still held the same casserole dish. The father stood in the hallway, motionless, watching. The daughter sat at the end of a long dining table, smiling too wide. I'm Sarah, she said, voice unsure. We know, the mother replied calmly. We've seen you. Dinner was wrong. The food was normal-looking, roast chicken, green beans, some sort of red jelly, but it was ice cold. The family did not eat. They simply watched her chew. Sarah pushed her plate away after a few bites. So, where are you from? She asked. The mother's smile did not waver. Below. Sarah blinked. Below the state? No, the father said matter-of-factly. Below. There was silence. Then the little girl giggled. You have such a pretty skin. Excuse me? The mother stood. Would you like a tour? Sarah wanted to escape. Every fiber screamed to flee. But she nodded. They took her down a long corridor that felt longer than the house should be. Doors lined the walls, all closed. May I ask, what do you do for a living? She attempted. We study, the father replied. What exactly? People, the mother said. Inside and out. The daughter opened a door. Sarah looked in and almost gagged. The walls were covered in drawings. Detailed, anatomical sketches of her face, her organs, her bones, all labeled. The heart, vulnerable, the eyes, entry points, the hands, removed gently. I need to go, Sarah stammered, stepping back. The mother blocked her. You've already been invited, she whispered. Sarah bolted. She didn't remember running. Just the cold air on her face and her own heartbeat pounding like a war drum. The door slammed behind her. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, everything seemed normal. Too normal. She opened her window. No weird neighbors. No humming. Just the house across the street, quiet as ever. Had it all been a dream? She went to the grocery store just to get out and be with people. Fresh air. Noise. When she got home, her front door was open. On her kitchen table, the casserole dish rested. Still cold. Still untouched. And beside it a drawing. Of herself. Sleeping. Labeled. Preparation begins soon. She called the police. A policeman arrived, yawned and skeptical. He went through the house, nodded respectfully, and strolled across the street to talk to the neighbors. Sarah stood at the window. He rang the bell. The door opened. The neighbors stood in impeccable formation. The policeman grinned, shook hands with them, then turned to wave at Sarah. He winked. The second night, the humming was back. Louder this time. almost chanting. She tried to block it out, tried to stay awake, but sleep pulled her under like deep water. In her dream, the neighbors stood around her bed. The daughter held a scalpel. The father whispered, "Still warm." And the mother said, "We'll keep this one." Sarah woke with a scream. Her window was open. On her nightstand, a fresh note. "You belong to us now." She packed up the next day. Packed in less than an hour. Drove across state lines. She didn't even look back. Months later, she drove through her old neighborhood. Couldn't help herself. Curiosity. The house across the street? Empty. Boarded up. Abandoned. No sign anyone had ever lived there. But when she returned to her motel, the casserole dish was waiting on her bed. Still cold. Still full. And underneath it, one final note. "We never moved in. You did."